So President Trump had a rally last night, and during it, he kind of made fun of Dr. Ford's testimony. I encourage you to look it up and watch it. But basically, he was just like, oh, I remember I only had one beer, but where was the party? I don't know. When was the party? I don't know. But I remember I only had one beer. It wasn't merciless or anything like that. But I will say that I do think it was mocking her to some extent. Now, I want to take two issues with this. The first is, I don't think it was a good thing for Trump to do this. This wouldn't be something I would do. It's not good for two reasons. The first is like a moral reason. I just don't think that you should be making fun of someone unless you're totally certain that they're lying or that their story's not true. By the way, this goes in both directions, for her and Kavanaugh, but which I'll get to the Kavanaugh portion in a second. Especially if you're president of the United States. It's one thing for a comedian or something to be doing this, but as president, now I didn't think it was super over the top or anything, but just on a moral stance, maybe not the best thing. Though this is what Trump does. Still, I didn't think it was in the best taste. Now, secondly, is I don't think it was strategically smart, because you have to know, as soon as you say this, then all the attention is going to be taken off like the actual facts and the fact that it seems as if the FBI is going to come out and say, yep, we don't have any facts that Kavanaugh did any of this. And now you're starting to see all kinds of revelations, like my past video showed, that Dr. Ford and all the others' testimony seems to be things are coming up that puts that even more question. So now you're taking all the attention off that, because Trump knows that the press is unfair and that they're going to hang on any little thing they can to make Kavanaugh or him look bad. So now it allows them to ignore the facts once more and just go after Trump. So I think this was stupid. And you're already seeing like Murkowski and Collins and Flake and people come out, oh, this was unacceptable. Trump couldn't, I couldn't believe this. No. So I didn't think it was the smartest thing in the world. I'm not terribly offended or anything of that nature. It was just dumb. And it's not really the right thing to do. It's not something I would do. And it's certainly not something that I think the president should do. Unless he's absolutely certain he's been given definitive proof that Dr. Ford is not telling the truth. If that's the case, then I guess, but you shouldn't be doing that until the public's made aware of that info anyways. Now, the bigger story here, though, is, the media, they have the vapors over this. How dare he? She's a potential victim, and the way he's mocking her, it's just, you can't mock potential victims. This is, oh my goodness, this is such a bad thing. What a joke. These are people that have no proof whatsoever that Kavanaugh's guilty, yet they've spent the past 2 to 3 weeks not only breathlessly saying any ridiculous allegation they can that they know is going to be used to harm them, not only defending protesters that are confronting people where police escorts now have to be had by Republican senators, or they're chasing people out of restaurants and things like that, and they're defending that type of behavior, but they've actually supported and themselves made fun of Kavanaugh. How many of them have gone on about his temperament, or you have SNL skits, or you have Jimmy Kimmel skits? Now, granted, that's not the media per se, but they're defending this. They're in this same line, and they're either mocking or just flat out calling Kavanaugh a rapist. What would be worse? Ask yourself this. If Trump came out and made the slight comments he did that were in a mocking tone, but I don't think they were overly vicious to Ford, if he did what he did, or if he came out and said, Ford's a liar, let's get perjury accusations, let's go after her, she's a scumbag who did this, she shouldn't be allowed to coach kids' teams, she shouldn't be allowed to have any public life whatsoever, we need to all go after her. That's what the media is doing. That's what the Democratic senators are doing. That's what the culture is doing. All these celebrities and comedians and things of that nature, all the late night shows, they do that every night, over and over and over. And they have no proof. Not one of them has said they had proof that Kavanaugh's guilty. It's just their feeling. Over and over. And they take it a step further. It's not just Kavanaugh. It's old white men or white patriarchy or something like that. They can make fun of all that. Oh, Kavanaugh got upset. That's just the white patriarchy. Oh, white men. Sorry, white men. Why don't you step back? White men getting upset because their privilege is being challenged, right? That mocking was okay by the media and Democratic senators and all these comedians. That was perfectly fine. You could parse through anything he said. You can go through his yearbook. You can make any comment you want, make fun of him in any way whatsoever, and that was deemed acceptable. Now, I thought that I did a video on the SNL skit. I didn't think it was funny, but I wasn't offended. I'm just like, yeah, this is stupid. It's in bad taste, and it has, as far as I'm concerned, the number one faux pas you can make in comedy of not being funny. I didn't think it was that funny, but that's objective. Maybe you watched it and thought it was funny. That's fine. But that's different, right? We're not talking about just comedians, though. We're talking about Democratic senators and the media doing this. Now they feign outrage. And it just goes to show the double standard. This is the problem with this whole thing in the first place, where we artificially say you could never challenge anything an accuser says. Like, we have to take everything they say at face value, even if the story's falling apart, even if there's large gaping holes, right? If Brett Kavanaugh would have said, if he was asked about one of these specific parties based on his calendar, right? And they said, oh, you're at July 1st. You were at a party with PJ and Squee and Mark Judge, right? Yeah, you remember that? Yeah, I remember. We were at PJ's place. Okay, and do you remember how much you had to drink? I had one beer. I'm confident I had one beer. The media would have made fun of that breathlessly. So would the Democrats. How could he remember he has one beer? That's absurd. Doesn't remember any of the other details about the party, but remembers he had one beer. That's ridiculous. They would have said, oh, he's lying. He perjured himself. What a joke. What a frat guy trying to make something like this up. But when Dr. Ford says that, you can't even question it. It's traumatic. She's gone through trauma. They take the default position that she's completely telling the truth, and therefore you can't question anything she says because she's a victim. They don't say, well, wait a minute, we don't even know if a crime occurred. Let's look at both of their statements with equal inquisitiveness and see what we can find out. No. It is, you could go through Brett's life, you could make fun of Brett, you could make fun of Brett's race, you could make fun of his gender, you could deem him guilty based on those things, you could say the vilest things about him. Some outlets, you can make fun of his daughters and what they're praying about. You could do all of this. None of that's out of bounds, right? But as soon as Trump or someone starts to question or make similar comments in the slightest of ways, she only had one beer, she can't remember all these details, but she remembers she has one beer? Come on. Now, granted, I don't want to hear my president saying that. And again, I admit that I think that it was bad strategically. But let's not act like all of a sudden. Then I watched Sarah Sanders, the press secretary, just had a press meeting, and it was just breathlessly, how could Trump say this? Can you believe Trump said this? Trump, this is so terrible. You have people saying, well, he said the Central Park Five were guilty, and, how can he believe in the presumption of innocence? And yeah, he had an opinion as a private individual. You're welcome to have that opinion, too. He apparently was wrong about that, but the Central Park Five and anyone else is entitled to a fair hearing, a fair trial. It wasn't just an accusation leveled against them with we don't even have proof that a crime committed. There wasn't a time, place that it took place. There wasn't a location that we know that it took place. All the people that saw them said that this didn't happen. Like, there was evidence. It appears that I don't know a lot about the case, I'll admit, but it appears that eventually they were vindicated and they were found innocent. But still, there was a trial, right? There were things of that nature. Not like what we're seeing with the media. And if you are the media, right, and if you're one of these people upset because Trump said that with the Central Park Five, great lesson to you then, right? Well, maybe we shouldn't be breathlessly assuming someone's guilty based on mere accusations. And if you watch the Sanders press conference, it's hilarious, too, because she keeps being like, yeah, Bill Clinton's accusers, you guys still don't want to talk to them? Keith Ellison's accuser, you don't want to talk to them? Oh, of course not. Because it's all grandstanding. Because once more, we see that all these people that pretend, the media breathlessly talks to us about how important they are to this country and how important a free press is. They're not a free press. They are the Democrats' mouthpieces. They're just a part of the Democratic Party. This week has showed that. They are anything that they could discuss that makes Kavanaugh look bad. He threw ice at someone maybe at a bar one time. Notes being leaked to them that have no name, nothing, totally anonymous, that say that he sexually assaulted people. They have no way to back it up, but they're running it as if it's a legitimate news story. They are 100% just acting as the mouthpiece of the Democratic Party, and they're willing to destroy a man over this and destroy their own reputation over it. They don't care. And so for them to preach that this is somehow moral high ground, how dare Trump mock even in the slightest way Dr. Ford? How dare he? Jim Acosta said, does Mr. Trump think that does he think that Kavanaugh's the real victim here? Well, yeah, if she's mistaken, then he is a real victim here. I know Acosta and media, you can't perceive that. Why? But because he's white, because he's a man, because here's the real reason, because he was nominated by Trump, because he might upset the Democrats' power on the court. So therefore, he can't be a victim. How could that guy be a victim? He's on the other ideological team as me. Therefore, anything goes. My opponent can never be a victim. It is so ridiculous. Now, so again, my point is, I thought it was not strategic of Trump to do to say this, and it also was slightly immoral, I think. Not the best thing, not his best moment. I thought up until now he was being pretty diplomatic, but it is aggravating. You can see why Trump would want to do it. You're sitting there every day, and you're like, holy cow, look at the media. They won't even report the basic facts of things like none of Ford's witnesses corroborate her story. They won't even report all these holes in our story. They just breathlessly go on and on about parsing anything in Kavanaugh's life, making fun of him. So Trump's like, well, someone's got to speak up for the guy. I guess it'll be me. I don't think he should have did it in that way, but I'm not terribly upset about it either. But if the media was doing his job, he wouldn't have to be saying things like this. So, yeah, the media is a total joke, and it once more just shows their double standard. They think that it's okay to go out, teeth and claws out after Kavanaugh, but you can't say a word about Dr. Ford. And that's indicative of how biased the media is and how screwed up this whole idea of removing the presumption of innocence is. So, have a good one.